exaggeration, millennia, have been practiced in different parts of the world, in different cultural traditions and spiritual traditions. And it's taken, some of us Westerners to actually find like, well, where's the hard evidence for some of this stuff? And so lots of research is being done, as I'm sure many of you know, because it's all over the place. We're hearing stuff for the last couple of decades that's just really, helping us all to understand, if we want to pay attention to it, the power that we have by using our minds, by exercising our minds. In some ways, kind of like we exercise our bodies because we know that's good for us. We now know that exercising our minds is good for us. And of particular importance to any of us who may be experiencing a higher than normal degree of stress and anxiety today because of what's going on. But also just for those of us who ourselves are carrying around a lot of anxiety or are in relationships with people who are, these are some things that can help us figure out how to calm ourselves down and increase our well-being. So that's what this is about. So we're just going to review some simple, proven stress reduction practices, and add in some ideas for building kindness and building compassion and building community, even in the times of COVID. So I'm going to just share this for a second. I want to show you one thing to begin with, besides this title page that, of course, reminds us we're here now on May 1st. You can contact me through my website if you want to. So here's some interesting stuff. And I have I want to show you a video that gets into this a little bit here. Some simple things that we know, and many of you know about these things and can probably add in a lot more, which is one of the reasons why when we can do this with each other in person or in a more interactive way, it's really ideal. But for right now, there's this way of breathing, and we talked about this last time, the power of paying attention to our own breath. Our breath is with us all the time, and we can practice this kind of thing almost any time of the day that we're awake. And it's not hard to find some times to do this. The hard part is just remembering why it's important to find those times to do it. Sometimes it's helpful to have a buddy or a breathing partner, or just someone to say, hey, let's remind each other sometimes, did you breathe today? Did you remember to breathe? Because we know we're breathing, but what often happens is that we're breathing on autopilot. And what is true is that when we focus on our breath, is something as simple as, I know I'm inhaling. I know I'm exhaling. If we do that a few minutes here and there throughout the day, just acknowledging that that's what's happening right now, and we know it, and we're aware of it, and we're aware of where we're feeling it in our bodies. Maybe it's in our abdomen, maybe it's in our chest, maybe it's in our nostrils. Being present to those moments of breath is really important and really good for us. So one of the cool things, and some of you know about this, is the box breathing is a common name for it, where we're going to do this thing, and I'll show you this video so you can follow along, and we'll just have this on for maybe 2 minutes or something. But what it's going to be is inhaling to the count of 4, holding your breath to the count of 4, exhaling to the count of 4, and holding your breath again to the count of 4. And we're just going to repeat that a few times. You'll see how simple this is. For those of you that practice this already or that are aware of it, this is a reminder. It's good to do it again and again and incorporate it as much as we can into our days. One of the really interesting things, without getting too into this research, but this is really cool, because one thing I hear a lot is people say, well, I can't really practice these breathing exercises because my mind starts to wander, or I lose track, or I get distracted really easily, or I can't sit in meditation because my mind is just going, 1,000,000 miles a minute and I can't focus. And I guess I'm not really cut out to do this. And I'm just here to say, yeah, we actually all are cut out to do this. And it's okay if your mind wanders a lot, because that's what our minds do. This isn't about making your mind stop wandering. It's about recognizing when the mind is wandering. And so this simple breathing technique is a great example of this, because what some of the most really interesting research is saying, these studies are replicated over and over around the world, is that every time our mind starts to wander when we're trying to concentrate, and we're able to bring it back to what we're focusing on, that is building our capacity to increase our attention span. And even many of us that do not have a formal diagnosis of anything like attention deficit disorder, we collectively in the world today do have somewhat of an attention deficit disorder. And again, there's a lot of research about this. A generation ago, human beings were able to hold our attention for longer than we seem to be able to today. So these practices help us build attention. And that's one of the reasons why this is becoming popular in schools, even with young children. You may hear things about kindness curriculum or conscious classrooms, where we know that we would love for students in our schools to be able to focus a little better and pay attention a little bit longer. And these things help us do that. So let me just see if I can get this little video up here to show you what I'm talking about. This is on YouTube. And I'm going to unplug here. And so just see if you can follow along with this for a minute or a minute and a half or so. Okay. Pause. I need to share again, I believe. Let's try this. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to go to here, go to here. Hopefully this will work. So we're breathing in, holding it. Breathing out. Hold to the count of 4. Inhaling. Holding. Let's do one more cycle together. Breathing in for 4. Exhaling. And holding. So you get the idea. Hopefully you could see that. Ashley, you can just give me a nod because I can see you. Could you see that okay? Good. Glad to hear it. So now let's see. I'm going to stop that for a second. Okay, back to here. So this is something, and again, you see how simple this is. Anyone who can on their own or with help from someone else, just count to 4 while you inhale, count to 4 while you hold your breath, count to 4 while you exhale, and count to 4 holding your breath at the exhale. Doing this in that sort of a square image is one, just really effective. Like I know I'm stressing that these are simple, they are. And I am stressing that because I want people to know that anyone can do this and anyone can teach other people to do it, regardless of age, regardless of any sort of ability level. It's just something that we have access to all the time. And it's really great. And if you do nothing else from joining in with us in this time together, that would be one thing I would definitely recommend. So here's a couple of other things. I want to share this to, okay, here we go. tapping. There's a bunch of different ways of doing this. This one is called the butterfly tap. Welcome back, those of you last week. You've been doing this all week long because we talked about it last week. This is just, don't worry too much about like getting, about a second, 1001, 1002, 1001, 1002, something like that, alternating, tapping your shoulders. It can be tapping your biceps. It can be tapping your eyebrows. It's this bilateral stimulation, and it sends these messages back and forth between our brains and where we're touching where we're feeling that pressure, a little bit of pressure, the tapping on our bodies. And it has this kind of miraculous way, really, of helping us calm down. Even if it's just a little bit, we'll notice a difference in that. So there's the tapping. Some people call it a butterfly hug. This is something that I know people who are doing this 20, 30 minutes a day. Sometimes they're with groups of people, with their families or with other people that they're spending their time with. Sometimes it's just something you can do by yourself. Here's a cool thing. Have you ever been in a meeting where you felt like it's sort of stressful in this meeting right now? I kind of wish I didn't have to be in this meeting. I think most of us have been in a meeting like that. Well, this is what I know a lot of people that do this, and I'm going to include myself, is that you see this, the part of your hand that's between your thumb and your forefinger, right in here, that kind of fleshy part. This is something where, again, it's the bilateral thing. It's back and forth. It's just alternating, just gently squeezing that. It's kind of like a mini massage. Just squeezing that area between your thumb and your forefinger, alternating. You don't have to do any special mantra. If you want to make sure that you're paying attention to what you're doing in your mind or out loud, you could just say, this side, now this side, now this side, now this side, taking turns back and forth. I know people who do this in meetings and they'll put their hands kind of under a table so that no one else in the meeting knows what they're doing, because then they don't have to answer questions like, why are you squeezing your hands? They do it because sometimes, or not sometimes, because once, and you have to trust me on some of this stuff, you can look it up, but believe me, please, when I say, if you do this for a while and you do it over some time, you'll start to actually firsthand experience, it helps you relax. It helps you calm down. It helps you feel a little bit less stress. And we somehow manage as human beings to make these kind of manufacture all kinds of settings for ourselves to be a little bit stressed out in. And that's probably always going to be true, but all the more reason to have little tricks where we can de-stress a little bit. And then, you know what? It not only helps us feel better because we feel a little bit more relaxed at that meeting or during that conversation, but because we feel better, that kind of translates into our relationships with others. And so it helps others feel better too. So it's actually a gift. It isn't just something that's good for us, ourselves, but it's also good for people who we're with. So there's a couple of things like that. I just want to hold on. You have to keep track of time when you have, especially when you have very little time. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do this. Oh, I just have to share with you this letter. Check this out. This is from, I think it's a fourth grader. It's a third or a fourth grader who wrote this letter to her teacher. I'll call the teacher, who's an old friend of mine, I'll just call her, Mrs. Jones for right now. Dear Mrs. Jones, I really miss school and getting to see everyone in the class, but I'm glad we're staying safe at home. Hopefully we'll get to see everyone most days of the school week online and get to talk to them. I really want to thank you for all the hard work you're doing in a time like this. It means a lot to me and many other people. Thank you so much. So my friend, Sally, who shared this letter from one of her students, said it's the simple things like this that can happen during a time like this that just, in her case, she's like, okay, I was crying when I opened this letter. I will admit it. I was crying. It just touched me so much that my student would take that time to like mail me a letter in the mail saying that they miss me and they can't wait until we can all be together again. And I'm sharing this with you, not just because, oh, I think that's pretty adorable. I do, but also because what are the different things that we can do that don't really take time or money, and not even a whole lot of effort, that might just help somebody else have a better day? And I'm kind of always looking for that. Again, this is about stress reduction and building compassion and building empathy. These kinds of things do that. The more that we do our practices together, or not together necessarily, but the more we do these practices that we're talking about, it opens up these greater possibilities of finding that capacity in ourselves. So wait, hang on, let me find this. I don't think I'm sharing my screen right now. Are we still together? Ashley, can you still see me? You can see me.
We can still see you. This is Sally.
Okay,
and you are sharing your screen. We see a picture of
the Tens.
Some people walking by your house, I think.
Yeah, it's actually our neighbor's house. But I'm sharing this with you because this is just something that we do sometimes in our neighborhood, where, you know, if you walk down our block, you just get a 10. You know, you get a 10 just for being you, just for being yourself. You don't have to do anything. It's not about looks. It's not about athletic ability. It's just, you get a 10 kind of for showing up. And it's just an example of like one of our little ways of saying, you know what, to all the rest of the world, in this case, the rest of the people who happen to wander by, you're just fine the way you are. Because we get a lot of messages from the media, from all over the place, that tells us we're not quite good enough. We're not quite all there yet. We're not quite doing the right thing to take care of ourselves. Well, what we like to do sometimes is put out the message that, you know what, yeah, you don't need to do anything. You're still a 10, okay? You get a 10 for being you. And part of this was inspired by the words of Ram Dass, the late great teacher and writer, who has this this imagery, which I really love a lot, because I grew up in the woods. I mean, I didn't like actually grow up in the woods. Like, I mean, I lived in a house, but the house was in the woods, okay? And he talks about turning people into trees. And he talks about how when you're walking in the woods and you see trees, you don't judge them for like not fully being standing straight up, or for not fully, you know, growing that well. You just sort of see them and you accept, because it's part of nature. Like, that tree didn't get enough sun, so that's what it's doing. Or that tree died and that's why it's on the ground right now. And we just sort of like accept that for what it is. But then he talks about when we're encountering people, we sometimes get pretty judgmental. And so he says, I practice turning people into trees, which means just accepting people the way they are. And I just think that that's a really beautiful sentiment. And so I wanted to share it with you. And I also want to, let's see, I got to just do this really quick, and then we're going to do a song, and then we're going to see if there's any questions. Am I still sharing this? I got to show you these words from Sharon Salzberg. If you get a chance to look her up on YouTube, read any of her books, she talks about how compassion isn't just good for another person. We think of compassion as like, I'm trying to be compassionate and understand you, or understand your suffering, whatever it may be. But it's when we practice self-compassion, we're building stronger connections between our brain, as she says, our heart and other organs. And it helps us calm down, and it reduces our stress, and it boosts our immune system. And so these strategies that we have for well-being, improving our own well-being, actually also help improve the well-being of anybody that we come into contact with. So let's just quickly, I'll show you this recommended reading. I think this is going to be on Facebook Alive Living for a while. So if you miss it right now, you can come back to these if you want to see this book list. But also, obviously, feel free to contact me. I think what I'll do is I'm going to do this, and this, and get ready to share this song. Right before I do, however, I got a chance not that long ago to see Dr. Richard Davidson, who is here at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, kind of getting to be a household name, for sure in the world of mindfulness and neuroscience. And he's one of the world's leading researchers on this stuff, and is a pretty fascinating guy to listen to. And basically, one of the things that he says is that well-being is a skill that we can learn. Again, this, you can't refute this now. Science knows this. Well-being, our ability to improve our own well-being and the well-being of other people, is a skill set that we can learn. And a lot of the ways that we can learn to do this begin with these simple techniques that we've been talking about: the breathing, or the tapping, or the finding the quiet time, just to be able to focus for a little bit on your breath, or noticing your thoughts, or noticing your feelings non-judgmentally, just being aware of them. And so what he says is that we owe it to ourselves and to each other to learn these skills, because it makes our communities better, and it actually builds a better capacity for making our world a better place. And what he says is, we need ideas for making our world a better place, because the path that we're choosing up till now isn't always working that well. This is a song that's based on a tune by the Monsters of Folk, and it's called, and I rewrote most of the lyrics, and it's called The Right Place. And it goes like this. Do you like where you're living? Do you like what you do? Do you like what you're seeing when you're looking at you? Do you like who's with you when you're face to face, or when you shelter in place? Even with Zoom or Facebook, you're still face to face. Are you washing your hands many times every day? Staying home all you can till this thing goes away. And remembering this, don't touch your face. I know we're gonna get through it while we shelter in place. Spending your day at work or at play, tell me, does it feel all right? And even though we have to be quarantined, are you able to see the light? And people, the people that you see, do they make for good company? 'Cause you need them and they need you too. Who do you love and who's loving you? If you like where you're living, if you like what you do, if you like what you're seeing when you're looking at you, if you're keeping your distance but you can still see a face, then you got the right feeling. You're in the right place. Thanks, everybody. We'll be around for a few minutes here on Facebook Live. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Stay safe. Keep your distance. Wash hands. Remember, soap and water, warm soap and water is better than Purell or hand sanitizer. I mean, yeah, use that stuff if you have to, but remember, soap and water, don't touch your face. Mask, gloves. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Peter. I'll definitely try those. Have a great weekend, everyone. Be kind to everyone. Bye.
Thanks for your help, Ashley and Sally. There was a question from someone asking about, do you recommend doing these practices several